At 2:13 on a Tuesday morning, a man I had never met called my private number and told me my daughter had 48 hours to live. He didn't introduce himself. He didn't ask if he'd reached the right person. He just said, "Mr. Hale, don't hang up." I sat up in bed. "Who is this?" "Someone your son-in-law thinks he hired." That woke me up completely. "What did you say?" The man's voice was calm, too calm for 2 in the morning. "Your daughter, Madison. He wants her dead." I stopped breathing. For a few seconds, all I could hear was the ceiling fan above my bed. Then I said, "If this is some kind of joke, it isn't. Your son-in-law offered me $120,000. For what?" The man hesitated. "Then, to make Madison disappear during her trip to Cabo this weekend." I threw the blanket off. "My daughter isn't going to Cabo." Silence. Then the man said, "That's a problem." My skin went cold. "What problem?" "Because Preston thinks she is." I got out of bed. "Who are you?" "My name is Marcus Reed." "What do you want?" "I want you to listen before you call the police." "I am calling the police." "You should. But first ask yourself why Preston Vale knows your daughter is supposed to be in Mexico when you don't." I stopped. He continued, "And ask yourself why he gave me photographs of her rental car, her hotel reservation, her medication list." Then his voice dropped. "And the custody schedule for your granddaughters." I gripped the phone. Madison had 2 girls. Chloe was 12. Emma was 8. "What do my granddaughters have to do with this?" Marcus didn't answer immediately. That was the moment I became truly afraid. Finally, he said, "Preston doesn't want the girls there when it happens." I walked into the hallway. My hands were shaking. "Where is my daughter right now?" "I don't know." "You said you were hired to kill her." I said he thinks that's what I agreed to do. There was a difference. I heard it. "Then what did you agree to do?" Marcus exhaled. "At first, take his money. Keep him talking. And figure out how deep this goes." "At first?" "Yes." "What's changed?" "I found out I'm not the first man he's asked." That sentence stopped me in the middle of my hallway. Marcus continued. "And Mr. Hale, there is something else." "What?" "I don't think killing Madison is his entire plan." "What the hell does that mean?" "I think he intends to make her look dangerous before she dies." I closed my eyes. Suddenly, the previous 8 months rearranged themselves in my head. My daughter's arrest, the restraining order, the custody evaluator, the emails saying Madison was unstable, the allegation that she'd driven drunk with the children, the videos Preston had shown everyone, her company accounts being frozen, her own daughters asking why mommy was sick. All those things that had felt like a marriage falling apart suddenly looked like preparation. Marcus said, "Mr. Hale, I am here. I need to meet you." "Where?" "Not at your house. Not at Madison's. Not anywhere Preston would expect." Then he said something I didn't understand until much later. "And leave your Tesla at home." I had spent my career investigating failures. "My name is Robert Hale. Most people call me Rob. I'm 69 now. At the time Marcus called, I was 66. I spent 38 years in aviation safety. Not as a pilot. As an accident investigator and safety consultant for commercial insurers and aircraft operators. When something failed at 30,000 feet, my job was to reconstruct how. A broken component was rarely the entire answer. Usually, there was a chain, a maintenance decision, a warning someone dismissed, a shortcut, a sensor reading that didn't make sense, a human being who said, "It'll probably be fine. Catastrophes are built from small permissions." That was true in airplanes. I later learned it was true in families too. My wife Ellen died 6 years before all of this. Breast cancer. 37 years of marriage, and somehow I still wasn't prepared for the silence afterward. We had 2 children. Our son Andrew lived in Denver with his wife. Madison was our youngest. She lived outside Los Angeles. She had always been the child most like her mother, smart, proud, and absolutely allergic to being told what she was supposed to want. When Madison was 9, I bought her a bicycle. Pink. Basket on the front. She looked at it and said, "Why is mine pink?" "Because you re a girl," she said. "That's not a reason." That was Madison. She wanted explanations, not instructions, which made the man she eventually married a very strange choice. Because Preston Vale loved instructions, especially when other people followed them. Preston Vale. Preston was 40 when Madison met him. He had built a company called Vitalis Labs. It started with nutritional supplements, then expanded into personalized wellness subscriptions, the hormone testing, fitness data, anti-aging products, and a mobile app that promised to optimize your entire life. Preston was good on camera. Very good. He spoke in podcasts about discipline, longevity, male responsibility, family leadership, building generational wealth. He was the kind of man who could say something controlling and make it sound like a TED Talk. Madison met him at a charity event in Santa Monica. At the time, she was creative director for a premium skincare company. She had also done modeling in her 20s. 6 months after they met, Preston flew her to Lake Como. He proposed on a private boat. Ellen was already gone by then. I remember Madison FaceTiming me from Italy, holding up the ring, crying. "Dad, don't say anything negative." I laughed. "I haven't even said hello. I know you." She was right. I had reservations. But I didn't want to become the father who turned every boyfriend into an inspection report. So I said, "If he makes you happy, I'll learn to like him," Madison replied. "He doesn't have to make you happy." Another warning I didn't recognize. The marriage looked perfect. They married 7 months later. Malibu. Ocean front. White flowers. String quartet. More money spent on one weekend than Ellen and I had spent on our first house. Preston gave a speech about finding the woman who completed the life he built. At the time, everyone thought it was romantic. Years later, Madison told me, "That sentence should have scared me." Why? Because even then, I was something he thought belonged inside his design. They had Chloe 2 years later. Emma, 4 years after that. From the outside, Preston had everything. Beautiful wife. Children. Modern house in Hidden Hills. Successful company. Media appearances. Cars. Money. Influence. What none of us knew was that Preston was also sleeping with other women. Not one affair. Several employees. Influencers. A woman who ran events for Vitalis. Madison didn't learn the extent until much later. What started destroying the marriage wasn't even the cheating. It was independence. Madison wanted to work again. Aurelia. After Emma started kindergarten, Madison wanted something of her own. She developed a premium skin recovery line called Aurelia. Her formulas were built around post-treatment skincare. Nothing revolutionary. But the branding was excellent. Madison was excellent. Preston offered to finance it. I told her, "Don't." She laughed. "There he is. I'm serious. Why borrow from strangers if my husband wants to invest? Because strangers have contracts. Husbands have feelings." She ignored me. Preston funded Aurelia. Within a year he controlled manufacturing, distribution, accounting, payroll, online fulfillment. Madison remained the public face. Her name, her image, her product. But Preston gradually controlled everything underneath. When she asked for financial reports, he told her, "You focus on brand. I'll handle the boring parts." She pushed. He got angry. Then he started telling people Madison was emotionally overwhelmed. That phrase showed up everywhere later, emotionally overwhelmed. The first time she came to my house, it was after midnight. Madison stood outside my house in Santa Barbara wearing sunglasses. At night, I knew immediately. "Take them off. Dad, take them off." She did. A dark mark ran along her cheekbone. Not huge. Not cinematic. Worse somehow. Ordinary. What happened? Preston grabbed my phone. And? I grabbed it back. And? He pushed me. I felt my body change. The way it used to during accident scenes when emotion had to be placed somewhere else until the work was done. Where are the girls? With him. Get in the car. Dad, we re-getting them. No. Madison. No. He'll use that. Use what? He'll say I'm unstable. He already says I overreact. I stared at her. Your husband shoved you into something hard enough to bruise your face. And you were worried he'll say you overreact. She started crying. I made a mistake. A terrible one, I said. If you're not willing to leave him, I can't keep doing this with you. Madison stopped crying. Just stopped. I knew immediately I said the wrong thing. But pride is fast. Apologies are slower. She put the glasses back on. I didn't ask you to fix it. I asked if I could stay here tonight. I softened. Of course you can. She shook her head. No. I'll get a hotel. Madison. Good night, Dad. She left. I called the next morning. No answer. Again. No answer. 3 days later she texted. We've refined, please don't contact Preston. For months, I convinced myself I was respecting her boundary. The truth, part of me was punishing her for not taking my advice. That matters. Because controlling fathers and controlling husbands can sound very different while making the same mistake. Believing love gives you the right to decide for somebody else. The divorce? 8 months before Marcus called me, Madison finally filed. Not because of one event, because she discovered an entire second life. Affairs. Money transferred to accounts she didn't know about. A condo in West Hollywood used by Preston and one of his executives. And financial irregularities inside Aurelia. Madison hired a forensic accountant. Preston declared war. Not publicly. Quietly. First, he refused to leave the Hidden Hills house. Then he filed for primary custody. His petition described Madison as volatile, abusive, medication dependent, frequently intoxicated, emotionally unstable. I read it twice. Then called her. This is insane. Madison said. He's been building it for months. What? She forwarded emails, messages, notes. Preston had been sending carefully worded concerns to the pediatrician, a couples counselor, school administrators, even Madison's own physician. Nothing dramatic. Just, Madison seems unusually anxious. Madison forgot pickup today. Madison has been drinking more wine. Madison became very angry in front of the children. A record. One small entry at a time. The night Madison was arrested. Then Preston got something better. A police report. One night during an argument, Madison tried to take Chloe and Emma upstairs. Preston blocked the hallway. According to Madison, he grabbed her wrists. She shoved him away. Preston called 911 first. When deputies arrived, he had scratches on his neck. The girls had heard shouting. Chloe said, "Mom pushed Dad." That was enough to complicate everything. Madison was arrested on suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence. The charges were eventually dropped, but the arrest existed. The booking photo existed. The temporary restraining order existed. And for almost 4 months, Preston had primary physical custody. Madison called me from the parking lot after being released. I expected her to cry. She didn't. She said, "He finally got what he wanted." What? A picture of me in handcuffs. Teets and his first wife called. Her name was Rebecca Vale. I had never met her. Preston had told everyone his first marriage ended because Rebecca had a prescription drug problem. One afternoon, she called Madison's attorney. Then Madison called me. "Dad, you need to hear this." Rebecca's story made my stomach turn. 15 years earlier, Preston accused her of abusing prescription medication, said she was unstable, filed for emergency custody of their son, presented emails and witness statements. Rebecca lost custody for nearly a year. By the time she recovered parenting time, she'd lost the family house, her position in a business she helped start, and much of her savings. I asked, was she using drugs? Madison said, she had back surgery. She had a legal pain prescription. That night, for the first time, I stopped seeing Madison's divorce as a bad marriage. I started seeing a pattern. Preston's problem. Preston had another problem Madison didn't know about at first. Money. Vitalis Labs looked enormous from the outside. Revenue. Celebrity partners. Subscriptions. New headquarters. But beneath it, Preston had been moving cash between related companies. Borrowing aggressively. Using personal guarantees. And according to Madison's forensic accountant, potentially shifting marital assets into shell entities before the divorce valuation. If Madison received full discovery, she could expose hidden assets, tax issues, investor misrepresentations, and possibly regulatory problems. The divorce wasn't only going to cost Preston half of something. It threatened the story he sold about himself. And Preston Vale lived inside that story. Successful. Disciplined. Always in control. Never losing. Marcus Reed. Which brings me back to 2:13 in the morning. Marcus Reed. The stranger who said my son-in-law had offered him $120,000. We met at 5:30 that morning in a 24-hour diner off the 101. I left my Tesla home like he asked. Took Ellen's old Honda. No connected app. No shared location account. Marcus was already there. Early 50s. Gray at the temples. Plain black jacket. Nothing about him looked like a hitman. Then again, I had no idea what a hitman was supposed to look like. I sat across from him. Start talking. He slid a burner phone across the table. On it were screenshots. Preston's messages. Photographs of Madison. Her car. Her apartment building. School calendars for Chloe and Emma. A hotel reservation in Cabo. I looked up. She isn't going there. Marcus nodded. I know that now. Where did he get this? The reservation is real. I stared at him. Preston booked it. For Madison? In her name. That was twist number one. Preston had created a trip Madison never planned to take. Marcus said, he wants a digital trail showing she went to Mexico voluntarily. Why? Because he wants whatever happens to look disconnected from him. I felt sick. What exactly did he ask you to do? Marcus looked at the table. He gave me options. I waited. Carjacking. Drug robbery. Accidental overdose. Missing person case. He said he didn't care as long as she didn't come back. I forced myself to ask. And the girls? Stay with Preston that weekend. How convenient. Marcus didn't react. Why are you telling me? He leaned back. Because your son-in-law thinks I'm somebody I'm not. What are you? A fixer. That isn't an answer. It is in Los Angeles. He had done private security, corporate investigations, debt recovery. Sometimes work for people who didn't want lawyers involved. He had lied, threatened, paid people for information, created fake stories. He wasn't proud of any of it. But he said, I don't kill people. Why did Preston think you would? Because I let him. Marcus wasn't a hero. This is important. Marcus didn't come to me because his conscience suddenly woke up. At least not entirely. He had been doing business with Preston for almost 2 years. Vitalis hired one of Marcus's companies for security consulting. Marcus had helped Preston track employees, investigate suspected leaks, or run background checks, and once follow Madison. When Preston first talked about getting rid of the problem, Marcus thought he meant intimidation, financial pressure, maybe compromising photographs. Then Preston became explicit. Marcus stalled. And while stalling, he discovered something else. Preston had been routing payments through Marcus's company in a way that could make Marcus look like the architect of several illegal transactions. He was setting you up too. Marcus nodded. If Madison dies and people start digging, I'm the convenient criminal contractor. Why not go directly to police? I am going, but I needed proof first. Why call me? Because Madison doesn't trust me. She shouldn't. And because Preston talks differently when he thinks he's speaking to another man who agrees with him. That line stayed with me. The first lie Marcus used to buoy time. Marcus had already delayed Preston for nearly 6 weeks. Every few days, Preston asked. When? Marcus invented problems. Too many cameras. Bad timing. Madison changed routines. Children present. Then Marcus told Preston something else. He claimed Madison was already being investigated by federal regulators for financial misconduct. If she gets indicted, your divorce gets easier. Preston loved that idea. So he waited. The investigation was fictional. Marcus made it up. He forged a convincing email. I stared at him. You understand? You readmitting fraud to me. Yes. You lie for a living. Sometimes. And I'm supposed to trust you? No. He pushed the phone closer. Trust recordings. That was the smartest thing he said all morning. My doctor didn't know yet. I wanted to call Madison immediately. Marcus stopped me. If she changes behavior, Preston changes behavior. I don't care. You should. I hated him. But he was right. So I called Madison's attorney instead. Her attorney contacted the district attorney's office and law enforcement. By noon, I was sitting in a conference room with people whose names I won't use in this fictional retelling. They asked, would Marcus cooperate? Would he wear a wire? Would he allow controlled communications? Marcus said yes. I asked, why? He looked at me. Because if I walk away now, Preston finds somebody else. That was the first moment I believed there might be something decent inside him. Not clean. Decent. There's a difference. Madison finally learned the truth. We told Madison that afternoon. She sat across from me in her lawyer's office. When they said Preston had tried to hire someone, she didn't react. Not for several seconds. Then, to kill me. Her attorney nodded. Madison looked at me. I had never seen that expression on my daughter's face. Not fear. Recognition. Like the last puzzle piece had finally dropped into place. She whispered. I knew he hated losing. Then she asked, what happens to the girls? I started to answer. She looked at the prosecutor instead. No. Legally. What happens to my daughters if he gets arrested? Even after learning someone wanted her dead, Madison's first planning question was about her children. That mattered to me. Because for months Preston had been telling the world she was a selfish, unstable mother. And there she was, thinking about Chloe and Emma before herself. The fake Cabo trip. Investigators made a decision. The fake Cabo trip would continue. Madison would appear to leave Los Angeles. Her phone would move toward LAX. A rideshare record would exist. But she wouldn't board an international flight. She would be placed somewhere safe. Her regular phone would remain controlled. Only a handful of people knew. Preston believed she had gone. At 3:14 that afternoon, he texted Marcus. She's leaving Friday. Let's end this. Marcus replied. Need final authorization in person. Preston. Fine. Lunch Thursday. The sting was set. He found something worse. The night before the lunch, Madison's forensic accountant called. They had found an insurance policy. Not ordinary life insurance. A $5 million key person policy connected to Aurelia and Vitalis. Madison's death could trigger a buyout, debt repayment, and a transfer of certain ownership rights. Preston wouldn't receive $5 million in cash personally. It was more sophisticated than that. Her death would solve a corporate problem. I sat with Madison as her attorney explained it. She whispered, so I was worth more dead than divorced. Nobody answered. Then the accountant found a second document, an unsigned draft custody declaration. It described how Preston would explain Madison's death to the children. One line read, the girls should understand their mother had been struggling for a long time. The document had been created 3 weeks earlier, before any murder had occurred. That was the moment Madison started shaking. He already wrote my obituary. The lunch, Thursday. 1:07 p.m. Beverly Hills. Preston sat across from Marcus in a restaurant he'd chosen. Busy enough to feel safe. Quiet enough to talk. Marcus wore a wire. Detectives were nearby. I was not. I'm glad. If I'd been within 50 feet of Preston that day, I don't know what I would have done. Marcus started slowly. You can still stop this, Preston said. Why would I? You understand what I'm saying? Yes. When we leave here, I make the call. I understand. Madison doesn't come home. Preston paused. Then, that's the point, Marcus asked. What about Chloe and Emma? They read better off with stability. Without their mother? Preston said. They need a healthy mother. Marcus. Madison is their mother. Preston's response became the sentence I still hear when I can't sleep. She can be replaced. I had spent years thinking hatred was the worst thing one human could feel for another. I was wrong. Sometimes the worst thing is seeing a person as interchangeable. How much? Marcus continued. You said 120. Yes. Half before. You've already got 20. Another 40 when she's confirmed in Mexico. Balance after. And you don't want details? No. What if it's ugly? Preston said. I don't care. What if she suffers? Long pause. Then, she made everybody suffer for 2 years. Marcus gave him another exit. This is different from talking angry. I know. You don't get to undo it afterward. I know. Say it clearly. Preston became irritated. I want Madison gone. Marcus. Gone how? Preston stared at him, then said, dead. One word. No metaphor. No confusion. No, I was frustrated. Dead. The final question. Marcus asked. You sure? Preston laughed. You've asked me that 10 times. I'm asking 11. Yes. 100%. Preston leaned back. Yes. 100%. Marcus nodded, then said, Okay. Then, when you walk out of this restaurant, you don't call me and change your mind. I won't. Preston smiled. Honestly, I'll finally be able to breathe. The meeting ended. Preston returned to his office. Madison was alive in a secure hotel less than 10 miles away. Preston believed she was on her way to Mexico. The second twist at the hotel. That evening Madison received an email. From Chloe's school account. Subject. Mom, please call me. Madison panicked. Investigators initially thought Preston had somehow reached the children. But the email contained only one line. Dad says you were sick again. Are you really coming back? Madison cried. Not because the sting had failed. Because Preston was already preparing the girls. Already telling them their mother was sick. Building the emotional explanation before her supposed death. Madison looked at me. He's doing it again. What? Making them remember me wrong. That became her real objective. Not just survival. She wanted her daughters back before Preston rewrote their mother inside their heads. The arrest. The following morning, officers arrested Preston at his home in Hidden Hills. Chloe and Emma were present. That part was awful. There is no clean way to arrest someone's father in front of them. Madison was brought to a separate location. Child protection professionals became involved. Hours later, Madison finally saw her girls. Emma ran first. Chloe didn't. Chloe stood near the doorway. 12 years old. Confused. Angry. She asked, Did you get Dad arrested? Madison's face collapsed. No. Then why is he in jail? Madison couldn't answer with the full truth. Not then, she said. Because adults sometimes make terrible choices. Chloe looked at me. I had no words either. Justice is ugly when children have to live inside it. Preston's defense. Preston denied everything, then changed strategy. Marcus was a liar. A con man. An extortionist. The recordings were manipulated. The conversation was hypothetical. The $120,000 concerned private investigation work. The Cabo plan was about monitoring Madison's boyfriend. There was no boyfriend. Then, Marcus had pressured him, entrapped him, provoked him. Preston said he'd only played along because Marcus frightened him. That was the problem prosecutors knew would come. Marcus had credibility issues. He really had lied. He had fabricated documents. He had questionable business practices. Defense attorneys could attack him for days. But the case was never going to depend entirely on Marcus. Because Preston had done something controlling people often do. He documented himself. Preston's own cloud account. Vitalis used an enterprise messaging platform. Preston assumed deleted messages disappeared. They didn't. Backups existed. Investigators recovered conversations in which he asked Marcus, "Can this look random? I don't want custody questions afterward. Mexico is cleaner. No body in California." There were calendar notes, payment records, a $20,000 transfer to Marcus's security company, search history from Preston's laptop, spouse death, pending divorce, property rights, California, D-person, insurance, death, divorce, international death certificate recognition, U.S., and one especially chilling search. How long after spouse death can custody orders be dismissed? Preston's defense could call Marcus a liar. The cloud didn't care what Marcus was. The thing Madison found after the arrest. 3 weeks after Preston's arrest, Madison returned to the Hidden Hills house with attorneys and an investigator to collect personal property. In Preston's guest house office, they found a storage drive. Encrypted. On it were folders. Not only about Madison, Rebecca, the first wife. Emails, photographs, private investigator reports, medical records, a folder titled Riska / Custody. Inside were strategy notes for both women. Different marriages, different years. Nearly identical playbook. Document instability. Create third-party concern. Establish substance narrative. Get police contact. Secure temporary custody. Control residence. Control financial access. Madison called me. She couldn't speak for almost a minute. Finally, he had a system. That twist changed everything emotionally. Madison had spent years asking, what did I do that made him hate me? Now she understood. It wasn't that she uniquely failed. The system activated whenever a woman stopped complying. The hardest quest on my daughter asked me. One evening she came to Santa Barbara. We sat on my back porch. No lawyers, no investigators. Just us. She asked. Why didn't you come get me that night? I knew exactly which night. The bruise, the sunglasses. The night I said, if you won't leave him, I can't keep doing this. I looked at my hands. I thought I was setting a boundary. You were punishing me. Yes. That answer hurt. But she'd had enough lies. I wasn't giving her another. I was angry because you wouldn't listen. I thought if I made staying with him painful enough, you'd leave. Madison looked at me. Does that sound familiar? It did. Preston manipulated with money, fear, and punishment. I manipulated with withdrawal. Not remotely the same degree, but built on a similar arrogance. I know what's best, therefore I get to control the consequence. I said, I'm sorry. Madison cried. So am I. For what? For thinking needing help meant I was weak. I shook my head. No. Don't take responsibility for my part. Then I told her the sentence I should have said years earlier. If you ever need me, you don't have to agree with me first. She covered her face. And for the first time since Ellen died, my daughter let me hold her like she had when she was little. The plea offer. Preston faced serious exposure. But criminal cases are not movies. Marcus was a complicated witness. Certain charges were stronger than others. No physical attack had actually occurred. Madison was alive. The prosecution eventually discussed a plea. When Madison heard the proposed prison term, she was furious. That? He paid someone to kill me. Her attorney said. The state has to weigh trial risk. Madison said, my life doesn't become less valuable because Marcus had a conscience. That line stayed with me. She wanted trial. She wanted every recording played. Every message public. Every lie dismantled. I understood. But the decision wasn't emotionally simple. A trial also meant the girls testifying about the domestic incident, old allegations being reopened, Madison's medical history dissected, Marcus being torn apart, years of appeals. Eventually, Preston accepted a plea agreement on attempted murder-related charges and other financial conduct. The sentence was substantial. Not the rest of his life. Madison hated that for a long time. Then something changed. She told me. I kept measuring justice by how many years he lost. What changed? I realized I was still organizing my life around him. That was the beginning of her real freedom. ZHLOE. Emma came back to Madison emotionally faster. She was younger. Chloe struggled. Preston had spent months telling her. Mom was unstable. Mom wanted money. Mom broke the family. Dad was protecting everyone. One afternoon, Chloe screamed, "You trying to make me hate Dad?" Madison didn't defend herself. She said, "No. I want you to love whoever you love. But you allowed to know the truth when you old enough to understand it." Chloe said, "I hate both of you." Madison answered, "That's allowed too." I watched from the kitchen. And I understood something. Preston would have argued. Corrected. Demanded loyalty. Madison allowed the feeling to exist. That was how she finally broke his pattern. All real. The divorce eventually ended. Madison recovered full control over Aurelia after a long civil fight. She could have sold it. Instead, she rebuilt. Smaller. Independent manufacturing. Separate accounting. An outside board member. No spouse access. No romantic financing. I joked. "You finally listened to me." She stared at me. I raised both hands. "Sorry." She laughed. That laugh mattered more than any court order. Marcus. People ask what happened to Marcus Reed. He cooperated. He faced scrutiny for his own conduct. Some business activity caught up with him. He was not transformed into a saint because he saved Madison. Life is rarely that clean. About 2 years later, he sent me a letter, handwritten. It said, "Mr. Hale, I don't expect thanks. I let things go too far before I stopped them. I tell myself I saved your daughter. Truth is, I was also saving myself. Maybe both can be true." I kept the letter. Because he was right. People can do a good thing for an imperfect reason. Sometimes a life is saved anyway. The first morning in Madison's new house. 3 years after Preston's arrest, Madison bought a small house in Agoura Hills. Nothing like Hidden Hills. No marble foyer. No 6-car garage. No smart security system controlling every room. 3 bedrooms. A lemon tree. A little backyard. On move-in day, I offered to install cameras. Madison looked at me. "Outside only. Your house." "Exactly." So we put 1 camera over the driveway. 1 doorbell camera. That was it. No indoor cameras. No location sharing. No master account. No one person controlling everything. When I finished, I handed Madison the administrator password. She said, "You keep a backup?" "No." She looked suspicious. "Seriously? Seriously? What if I forget it?" "Then you reset it. What if something happens? You call me." She smiled. That phrase again. Call me. But this time, it meant something different. Not, "Call me and I'll take over." Not, "Call me when you're ready to follow my advice." Just, "Call me." 5 years later. I'm 71 now. Chloe is 17. Emma is 13. Madison still runs Aurelia. She dates occasionally. Nobody has met the girls yet. She says she's in no hurry. I'm not either. Preston is still dealing with the consequences of what he did. I rarely ask about him. For years, I thought the worst thing he tried to steal was Madison's life. I was wrong. He tried to steal her identity first. Mother. Businesswoman. Stable adult. Credible witness. He tried to turn her into an addict, an abuser, an unstable wife, a dangerous mother. Because if he could control the story people believed about Madison, he could control what happened to her. The murder plot was simply the final version of the same idea. Silence the person. Then tell everyone who she was. That's why the recordings mattered. That's why the old files mattered. That's why Rebecca mattered. That's why Marcus mattered. Every one of them returned a piece of Madison's voice. The last conversation. Last Christmas, we were sitting outside Madison's house after dinner. The girls were inside. Chloe was arguing with Emma about a movie. Normal family noise. Madison handed me coffee. She said, "Dad? Yeah? Do you remember when you told me you couldn't keep helping if I stayed?" "Yes. I used to hate you for that." "I know. I don't anymore." I looked at her. "Why?" "Because I finally understand you were scared." "That doesn't excuse it." "No. But understanding isn't the same as excusing." I smiled. "When did you get so annoyingly wise?" "Therapy. Expensive. Very." We laughed. Then she became serious. "You know what I learned?" "What?" "The opposite of control isn't being alone." I waited. "It's being able to ask for help without giving someone ownership of you." I didn't say anything. There are moments when your child teaches you the lesson you spent your whole life pretending you already knew. Preston Vale had almost everything people mistake for power: money, influence, lawyers, technology, a successful company, a beautiful house, people who answered when he called. And when the legal system stopped giving him exactly what he wanted, he tried to buy the one outcome no judge would give him. He found a man he thought would kill his wife for $120,000. But Preston's biggest mistake wasn't choosing a man who refused to kill Madison. His biggest mistake happened years earlier. He believed everybody could eventually be controlled. Madison, the children, his employees, his first wife, Marcus, me, even the truth. He was wrong. Truth is inconvenient that way. You can delay it, discredit it, edit it, pay people to hide it, build an entire story around something else. But once enough, people stop protecting the lie. Truth becomes very difficult to manage. I spent 38 years investigating aircraft failures. I learned that disasters rarely happen because one thing goes wrong. They rechains. One ignored warning. One bad decision. One person who stays silent. Then another. But survival can work the same way. One friend keeps a message. One accountant copies a file. One ex-wife speaks up. One dishonest man finally decides there is a line he won't cross. One daughter asks for help. And one father finally learns to answer without saying, "I told you so." If Madison calls me now, I don't ask whether she's taken my advice. I don't ask whether she was right. I don't ask whether I warned her. I answer the phone. That's all. Because sometimes the most important thing a father can give his daughter isn't protection. It's a door she knows will open.